This is another iRaw podcast.
Is so closely bonded to us that this creature cares about enough about how we feel that they act upon it to lessen our pain.
Welcome to Wild Development Studio. Join us as we venture into the breathtaking realm of wildlife arts and untamed adventures. With captivating stories from the field and ideas to dive into the visual arts, we'll ignite your passion for conservation. Get ready to develop something wild.
Welcome to Wild Developments, where you can break free from the daily grind and rediscover your wild side with art and adventure. I'm your guide, Lauren, and today we have on an exciting guest, Jason Zackowski. By day, he's a chemistry teacher, and in his free time, he is the host of the Science Pawdcast. It is a show that blends together science and pets in the perfect way. Jason breaks down the latest science happening in both the human world and the pet world, bringing fascinating guests and topics that will leave you laughing, learning, and wanting more. Whether it's an interview with a scientist on SciChat or a fun, heartwarming gathering of the pet community on Pet Chat, Jason's podcast has it all. Science, empathy, and cuteness wrapped into one. So let's dive into today's episode and explore the world of science and pets. Jason, thank you so much for being here today.
I am super excited.
So you've got a podcast or a podcast, but before we start talking about that, you are a chemistry teacher by day. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, by day, I am a chemistry teacher. I teach mostly chemistry with some general science. Yeah, that's my first calling. And then on the side, I have a whole thing with two science dogs that are very, very adorable.
The Bunsen and Beaker, right? Is that your dog's
Yep.
names?
Yeah, Bunsen, the Bernese Mountain Dog. Yeah, and Beaker, the Golden Retriever.
Aw. Do you like the Muppets, or was it just the chemistry thing?
It was both, because Bunsen is a burner, so he's a Bunsen burner, which is also a piece of chemistry equipment.
So my dad is a chemist, and he loves it. It was very difficult for me. What is it about chemistry that you like?
Oh, it's got to be setting things on fire and not going to jail. Like that is the number one. That's the number one thing. If there's smoke and there's fire and there's a hole in the roof, everybody just blames me, and the kids love it. I mean, like if a kid is tired and you make an explosion, they're not tired no more. They're listening to your lesson out of fear or out of engagement. Like both is good.
Yeah, as in that Machiavellian, you got the fear and the respect, and
Yeah.
That's funny. So do you have a favorite activity that you do, like a science experiment or something that the kids will talk about and get passed down from year to year? Like, you cannot wait until, gosh, how do you pronounce your last name?
Zackowski, like Wazowski from Monsters Incorporated.
Nice. Like, can't wait until Mr. Zackowski does this in class. Do you have that?
I got two. I do this massive wax explosion. Very, very simple, extremely dangerous, and only trained idiots like myself try to pull it out, try to get it to go. Makes an enormous fireball. We are in our science center has huge, tall ceilings, so it makes like a, I don't know, 25-foot fireball, like enormous fireball. And then I do a very famous one that a lot of the big science presenters do. It's a liquid nitrogen hot water explosion. I do that at assemblies, and when I go out to our smaller schools, like the elementary schools, and put on science shows sometimes for them. And that's the big showstopper at the end, is the big liquid nitrogen explosion.
Dude, you sound like a super fun chemistry teacher. My chemistry teacher in high school, she was like this little old lady that literally wrote the textbooks, and yeah, she was a stickler. But you sound like a really fun chemistry teacher.
Well, book learning, there's something to book learning. But sometimes the book gets set on fire and you got to learn in a different way.
I'm sure those things stick with the kids and lifelong memories right there. So from science teacher to science podcast, what inspired you to start podcasting?
Yeah, so we started to have a little bit of virality on social media when I started a Twitter account for our dog Bunsen, and I started to tweet through the eyes of a dog who loves science. So it was a really interesting kind of like fantasy people, because it was text-based, right? You could read this and think it was a dog tweeting. But I was always limited by the amount of characters. Of course, now on X, it's called now X, not Twitter, you can have enormous long posts. But I also wanted my own voice to talk about science instead of an adorable dog who loved moose legs and bacon. So that's where the Science Podcast came from. Is it was a way to bring the human that was definitely the Muppeteer behind the show, behind the social media accounts, out into the front. And then I've been able to talk to some really amazing scientists in the, what is it, gosh, 5 years I've been running the podcast. So
Well, that's impressive. And congratulations on passing my childhood hero, Bill Nye the Science Guy, in podcast ratings.
well, that's on Good Pods. We zoomed by him. I can't recommend Good Pods enough for smaller podcasts. Yeah, we're not Joe Rogan numbers, but yeah, we did pass Bill Nye. I've met him a couple times. Very nice gentleman.
That's pretty awesome. So, as far as like your guests that you've had on the show, what are some standout ones that you can think of?
Oh man. Like every scientist that we get to talk to, they are experts in their little corner of science, and they speak they speak about what they know and love so much with such passion. It's really hard to like pick a few. I love talking to like scientists that study an animal, and they're all in on squid or painted dogs, or any kind of animal, even like common animals that are around everybody every day, like a sparrow, right? They're scientists that have devoted their entire life to studying the different species of sparrows. But I have to give a nod to our space scientists, the astrophysicists and the cosmologists. Getting to talk to cosmologists about black holes and dark matter and where the matter on Earth came from at one point, it makes you feel like you're connected to this much grander thing, but we're all so very, very tiny in the big scheme of the universe. So Dr. Katie Mack is still my favorite guest I've ever had. She's one of the leading cosmologists in the world. Dr. Mack is awesome.
That's really neat. And I saw that you've done over 400 episodes when I was coming.
It's a lot.
That is so many. And you pretty niche down. When I was niching down, I'm like, God, am I going to run out of topics to talk about? Was that something that ever made you afraid?
No, there's always science. Like our show breaks down a topical science news item, and it's just anything that I find interesting that week. And then we look at science that's happening in the world of pets. There's always really cool science happening in the world of pets. And the third part of it is an interview with a scientist. And there's no shortage of scientists that love to talk about what they love.
Very good. Now, having done this for 5 years, has there been any lessons that you've learned about yourself or podcasting in general?
I think you have to really love podcasting, because it's not something that generally you can make a living at. Like only the top podcasters can quit their day job and that's what they do, right? So we, like most podcasters, we have a Patreon like thing, and that is secondary to the love of communicating a message that you're passionate about. So that's what I would if I had any advice to podcasters just starting out is, you'll know after like you've done 10 episodes if you want to do 10 more.
Yeah, I was a part of another podcast and I thought, I am never doing this again. We did that for like 3 years. And I'm like, I'm never podcasting again. And I was out of the game for like maybe 8 months before I'm like, I miss it so much. It's just so cool meeting people from all over the world. And, Zoom really made that easy for people to do. Now, we just had a big science event at the beginning of April. Did you catch out the solar eclipse?
My wife and I, so I'm Canadian. I live in Alberta, Canada. My wife and I flew to Dallas, Texas for it. I planned this months and months ahead, right? Like the next one in North America is 2044 or something like that, like a long time from now. And Texas was our best bet, both economically to fly, because anywhere in Canada flying is really expensive, and for cloud color cover. But literally 2 weeks before the eclipse, and maybe you followed it, a massive storm blew in and sat over Texas, and we were very worried we would miss it. Luckily, we drove until we saw sky, found a little town called Sulphur Springs, that was in the total path of totality, and we saw the eclipse, and it was like, it was, I don't, maybe not life-changing. I want to say it's the coolest thing I ever experienced in my life, though. It was like by far the coolest thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah, I'm addicted now. I need to see another totality event because it was almost like being on a movie set or something.
Yep.
Like you're just standing around looking like, is this real life?
No.
It was so cool.
Just how dark it got with the 360-degree sunset. And we were in this town in Texas, and everybody was cheering and crying and clapping. Like it was as close to a spiritual event as I think I could probably speak about, you know?
Yeah. Did you notice anything weird with the animals or anything where you were? Or...
No, I was, I saw the stars came out. I believe there was a planet Jupiter, like we could see Jupiter, like that was very, very cool. But we were also in the middle of like a little town, so the hustle and bustle of birds and stuff was not something I could really see. I did notice other science communicators were out in the middle of nowhere, and they did make that comment that birds went home, and you know, everything kind of was like, oh, it's time to go to bed.
Yeah. And we've got another big science event coming up with the 2 cicada broods coming out. Are you following that at all? Or I guess in Canada, you're not going to really.
No, the cicadas where we live, a cicada is going to be froze to death so that we don't have those bugs. I've never I've never seen a cicada in my life. I do know that they like crawl out of the earth ever so often and they go bananas. Just east of us in Saskatchewan, we have the garter snake unearthing, where all of the garter snakes that have been burrowed under the ground, they come out all at one time and writhe upon the ground and creep everybody out. So I don't know what's worse, cicadas coming out or like 500,000 garter snakes.
Where is this in the world?
Saskatchewan. It's just east of us. It's the Canadian province that looks like a rectangle.
I'm never going there. Sounds like nightmare fuel. Have you ever witnessed that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's bananas. Like,
oh gosh,
like Indiana Jones would have a rough go, you know.
Oh yeah, he would be freaking out for sure. The cicadas, I mean, they don't bite, they don't hurt people at all. I mean, I guess, you know, snakes, as long as you leave them alone, they're not going to bother you either. But the cicadas have quite a smell to them, and yeah, and there are some concerns locally that if your pet eats enough of them, it can make them sick. So that's what I was wondering if you had any thoughts on that. But you don't probably think about that being up in Canada.
No, our dogs find like moose legs and things like that. It's a little different.
So has that been a problem ever?
It's a true story. Bunsen found 11 moose legs over spring and winter. It's the whole thing.
11. That math isn't mathing.
No, there's a one-legged moose out there that's hopping around. I know. I've done the math too.
So, like, did he find Bigfoot's lair, or like how did that happen?
We have it's part of the social media. Like, we have very big social media accounts with the dogs, and it is endless conjecture how Bunsen found these legs and were the moose poached, you know, like hunters could take them out, right? Or we have scary predators like murder cats, like, you know, big cougars and stuff that maybe could take down a moose, a pack of wolves, maybe. So we have harsh winters. Maybe they didn't make the winters. But for whatever reason, Bunsen was very happy for their demise. I'll tell you that.
I bet he was very happy. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's still a mystery how he got 11.
He just kept finding them. Like there's one was, have you seen the Disney's Sword in the Stone? You know, you had there's like a moose leg sticking up out of the frozen snow, and he worked at it day after day, but he wasn't worthy until finally it melted enough and he got this like frozen moose leg out of the snow, and he was worthy, you know, like Thor picking up Thor's hammer.
Mjolnir.
Mjolnir, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh. And there's no concern about, I guess he can eat on a moose leg. Were you
Oh,
able to get it
we
away
don't
from
want
him?
him to eat. We don't want him to eat random things. Yeah, so we
Yeah.
try to take it away, but it's a whole thing. He runs away with them and brings like a 50-pound leg back to home, and we got to trade a popsicle for it or something like that. It's like you'd have to, if you follow Bunsen and Beaker, you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, it's the craziest thing in the world.
Well, now I'm gonna have to follow Bunsen and Beaker just to see that because that sounds hilarious.
It's hilarious.
So, what can we learn about being better human beings from our furry friends?
Like, okay, so that's a great question. Like better human beings to each other,
To each
or
other or animals or just in general.
yeah. So I don't know. I posted the other day about I build replica costumes, and I'm in something called Con Crunch. It's like, the convention's happening on Saturday. This little costume bit wasn't working. I had a man child hissy fit and I threw it across the room and sulked, like I'm a bit ashamed of my actions. And Beaker, our golden, she didn't give up on me. She smiled, she came over to me, she nudged me, and in about 30 seconds, I wasn't upset anymore. And I think what makes dogs so special is the amount of empathy that they have. Like they feel our feelings, and probably more than that, they smell our feelings, and that really affects them. And it is almost magical that this creature from 20,000, 15,000 years ago is so closely bonded to us that this creature cares about enough about how we feel that they act upon it to lessen our pain. And I think we could all be a little bit more aware of our fellow humans around us and act with a little bit more empathy.
Yeah.
So from person to person, I think that's what we can learn from dogs.
Well, at least the Goldens and the Labs, because my husky could care less unless I have a treat. But my he's a lab mix. And if somebody is upset, or even if we haven't even told anybody we're upset, we're kind of keeping that to ourselves. If George will get extra snuggly with whoever's feeling down at the moment. And gosh, Goldens and Labs have the best smile out of any dog.
Their smiles just blast away the darkness.
Oh yeah. Oh, I wonder. That's my Georgie right there.
I
Yeah.
think he smile.
Yeah. And then that's my cat. Cats are a whole nother thing. Do you have any cats?
Yeah, we have a cat named Ginger. There's a whole story about how we got her, but cats have big brains. They're not aloof monsters. I think they get a bad rap for being like this, like, they're little psychopaths in your house, but they're not. I mean, some cats can be, some dogs can be, but in general, cats do have empathy. They're a mammal. They have a mammalian brain like we do. They feel fear, they feel anger, they feel hunger, and if they feel that, they probably feel love in their version of love like how we do.
I often compare cats and dogs like males and females. Like the dogs are like a male and cats are like females, a little bit more like standoffish or whatever. But how did you come across Ginger?
So I'm super allergic to cats, like wicked allergic to cats. And on my podcast, I broke down a science story about this cat food that binds the fel D1 protein in cat saliva. So cats lick themselves, their hair, they shed, the hair splinters. Cat hair is very splintery. That's what makes most people allergic. Like 50% of people are allergic to the cat saliva. Something like half of 25%, it's other things, and like grossly 25% of it is cat urea, like pee, that people are allergic to the fumes. So this food binds to the saliva in their mouth, so when they go to lick themselves, they have way less fel D1 protein. So my family used that against me. They knew about this study, and they're like, well, now we can get a cat because we'll just feed her this protein and you won't be allergic anymore. Feed her this cat food, and it worked. So we have this adorable sassy orange cat named Ginger. And she's an internet darling. There's people that follow Bunsen and Beaker, but there's also people that follow us just for Ginger content.
Oh,
She's a little sweetheart. Yeah.
So what is the name of this food? Because I'm allergic and I still have a cat.
Per, Pro Clear, I think it's called. Purina Pro Clear. You might have to double. My wife buys the food for the cat.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Live Clear. Yeah, it only works 50% of the time. Just a disclaimer, right? Because you could be allergic to other things the cat has.
Yeah. So do you like having a cat now that you're not allergic?
So I love dogs. Bunsen is my wife's dog. During the pandemic, she taught from home, and they had this they formed this unbreakable bond. So no matter how much I try to love this burner, he really likes me, but man, does he love my wife. And our golden loves our son Adam. So guess which animal loves me the most?
You got the cat.
The cat. The cat is like my buddy. So I'm in my podcast room and the cat is knocking on the door to come in. She follows me around the house. She sleeps on my side of the bed. She's chosen me as her person, which is, if you study cats, that's actually pretty on par. Cats will generally pick the person that likes cats the least because they can control how you interact with them more. They have a power move on you.
Yeah, the cats are a little bit more, I guess, manipulative like that, I would say.
Yeah, they're protecting themselves, right? They don't necessarily want to get manhandled like a dog, so they'll pick the person who's allergic or less likely to pet them roughly.
Ah, they're smart.
Yeah, cats are pretty smart.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, where do I want to go with this question? 400 episodes. What is the plan for the podcast? Are you just gonna what are you thinking?
So I hit a wall. I always take a month and a bit break in December. I take December off and then most of January. I take half of December and all of January, sorry. And this last break, I was just feeling like I've been hitting a wall, right? Like I needed to take more of a break or think about how to do things differently. And on social media, my wife and I do together this live show called Pet Chat. And I have all of this technology you can't see, but I've got a Roadcaster and all of these dongles and things like that allow me to, from my phone, multicast our show to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and live video, all this stuff. So we do this show. And my wife has grown into this amazing co-host with me. We have a good back and forth. And the last couple podcast episodes, she's joined as a co-host, and it's totally changed how much I love it. I love it's because I love my wife. I love talking to her, and I'm so looking forward to doing more podcasts with her. Right, just bringing in a fresh voice. And she's really funny and she puts me in my place and people love it. People love it when I get put in my place. And I love self-deprecating humor. So I think the plan is to continue. But I'm really happy to bring Chris into the shows going forward. So if you listen to our early shows, it's just me talking, except for we have a tiny family section at the end where we talk about the dogs. But the latest episodes, Chris will be on as my co-host. So
That's really sweet.
Mm.
Do you have any dream guests that you would like to have on, like Bill Nye the Science Guy or anything like that?
I was this close to booking Dr. DeGrace Tyson.
What?
I know. We had a yes, we had a date, and then something came up, and that was the last I heard from the agent. So I know I was so close. I think they realized I wasn't we weren't the biggest podcast ever. I maybe, did a good job of marketing to them to be on the show because we have a huge social media following, right? But our podcast numbers maybe don't reflect that some weeks. And I'm sure they did some digging and they're like, well, this guy's not really, anyways, maybe that's what I think. Or maybe he just got busy or got a different agent. Bill Nye the Science Guy would be awesome as well.
Yeah. Did you ever watch, who was the other guy?
Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan was another great science communicator.
Well, at the same time as Bill Nye the Science Guy. and he had the crazy hair. Do you remember that one?
The crate. No, we had Mr. Wizard in Canada, who was like about the same time Carl Sagan was the American guy. So I would love to have had Mr. Wizard, but
Yeah.
he's long since passed. Another famous Canadian guy I'd love to talk to, but he's long since passed, is the Ernie Combs, who played Mr. Dressup. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Mr. Dressup TV show. That was a very popular Canadian TV show.
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. And then Commander Chris Hadfield is a Canadian astronaut. He brought the guitar to the ISS. He's got like a handlebar mustache. Maybe folks recognize that. And he sang a song on the ISS. Very cool guy. So those are some of my dream guests for sure.
That is neat. Yeah, it's kind of a weird world, the podcasting world, because some people are like, yeah, I'll be on your show for free, no big deal. And then other times you got to go through agents and they want to know your numbers and your reach and everything. And so I had to cancel a podcast I was going to be a guest on, because if I had to reschedule, it was a $150 fee. And if it was a no call, no show for whatever reason, it was going to be a $200 fee. And if I was able to, I had to send in a video explaining why I couldn't be on the show, and they would air that instead. And I'm like, comfortable with any of that. So just no.
Oh, well, I had to cancel on you because my day job got in the way, and you were very gracious to reschedule. So thank you for not charging me a couple $100.
I was telling my husband, I'm like, if I charged $150 for every time somebody had to reschedule with me, I would probably make $1,000 within the past month, because I'm doing so many interviews right now. So it's inevitable, it's
life happens.
People have day jobs and life happens. It's no big deal. But I don't know.
I take nothing personally when guests cancel or reschedule, and it's a joke. I take nothing personal, from Dr. DeGrace's Tyson's agent ghosting me. Like, I get it. Like, bigger things probably came up. Maybe another show or something. He was going to be on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon or something like that. Bigger fish to fry than my podcast.
I almost feel like this is 7 degrees of Tyson. He was supposed to be at some event in Ohio through the astrology club, and they were like this close to getting him for the solar eclipse, and then he kind of goes to them. So I'm feeling like there's a theme there with this guy.
Yeah. He's what, like, if you think about the top 5 science communicators in the world, he's at near the top, right?
Absolutely. He's probably a very busy guy.
Yeah.
So do you guys take your dogs on vacations anywhere? Do you have a favorite trail or hike that you like to take them on?
For folks that follow us on social media, they know we live on a farm in central Alberta, Canada. Not too far away is the Rocky Mountains. So we, on a clear day, you can see them, and the mountains call. That's like, maybe you've heard that before. The mountains call to you. So born and bred Albertans like me, when we see the Rockies, they call to us, and you have to go. Eventually the sirens call will bring you back to the mountains. So we go hiking in the mountains with the dogs. I love winter hiking. So put on some crampons, which are like, spiky things you put on your boot, and you just go through the, up snowy hills, through the mountains. No matter how cold it is, it's just gorgeous in the winter. I'm a cross-country skier, so I cross-country ski with the dogs on our farm, and we've taken the dogs to the coast. It's quite a drive for us, West Coast. One of the most beautiful places in the world is the Pacific Northwest, I think, in my opinion. So we've been to Vancouver Island a couple times with them, and the cool thing about that whole west side of Vancouver Island, Canada, is it's very dog friendly. Like, you can take your dog to the beach. So it's just a dog's playground, the whole beach, for endless sand as far as the eye can see, and just you and the dogs.
Awesome.
It's very hard to get to, so there's less people.
Yeah. Well, that must be nice.
Yeah.
So is there any special consideration for Bunsen and Beaker when they're out in the snow? Do they have the little dog boots or anything like that?
So Bunsen is pretty much impervious to all forms of cold. And I'm talking like extreme Canadian cold, not like, ooh, it's chilly, like minus 40 degrees Celsius cold. He's pretty much impervious, probably like your husky. Like your husky probably just laughs. Ha 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 ha.
Oh yeah, she'll sleep out in the snow.
Yeah. And huskies, like when you break down which dog breed does the best, huskies are near the top. They do better than Berners. Beaker does get cold. If you have a golden retriever that lives outside, they can become acclimated to very, very cold weather. Beaker doesn't. She lives inside. So we had booties for her when it got cold, but we bought these new things, and a couple of our videos went viral of her wearing them. They're snow pants. So they go on like they look like Western chaps, like the cowboys would wear. They go. I don't want to swear, but you know the word blankless chaps.
Yeah.
Right on both the front and the back, and they're held together by a suspender system. And as soon as she got used to those, she was a different dog. Because when it got super cold, she would be tentative after a bit, and her paws, when it's minus 30, that's way too cold for the average dog. But she can just blow through that with her snow pants on, and she was keeping up with Bunsen, and they were having so much fun. So we took some video of it, and it was one of our viral videos on social media.
Because I bet it's adorable. And of course they have to have no butt in the back because they need room for the tail, right?
Yeah, and to go pee and poop. Like some people are like, where's why does it look like that? I'm like, what, how how are they going to go number 1 and 2 if they've got real pants on? But it does answer that meme. How would dogs wear pants if they wore pants? We were able to answer that with those snow pants. That's how they wear them.
Oh, well, that's just because people designed them that way.
That's true.
You could always do the front legs have
They both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, front and back.
Interesting. Okay, I'm surprised I don't already follow your dogs on
Canada Pooch is the company that sells these called Canada Pooch.
Okay.
People can look. I mean, we should probably be an affiliate for them for how many times I've referenced people to go take a look at their website. It caused like an unbelievable amount of fighting though. When videos go viral, like looky-loos come out of the woodwork to just fight. And people were like, golden retrievers don't need those. And of course, they're like somebody from, I don't know, California talking about their dog in California doesn't need snow pants. I'm like, it's a little bit different weather in California compared to Alberta, Canada. I think it's a little colder up here than California. I know you get snow in California, but
a little bit colder up there. Yeah. I think my Georgie would like those because he, like I said, he's a mix and he looks like he skipped leg day. So he's kind of a potato on top and like really skinny legs. So he would definitely like that. We have a jacket for him that covers the top, but his little legs are pretty exposed.
Yeah.
Do you have a personal favorite experience outdoors?
So I absolutely love kayaking and paddleboarding in the mountains. So like personally for me, like if not including the dogs, there is something so peaceful about kayaking or paddling across like an aquamarine mountain lake that's got that rock salt in it, so the color of the water is like a emerald color. You can see the bottom and you're surrounded by mountains, and there's no hustle and bustle of traffic. Like you just feel your stress go, like just leave your for me. That would probably be very stressful for people who don't like kayaking or paddleboarding. And like I've trained Beaker to go paddleboarding with me. So she stands on the front of the paddleboard like a pirate, and she goes around me. She loves it.
Aww.
So a memorable experience of putting those both together was Bunsen is huge, right? He's a Bernese Mountain Dog. Like he's a big dog. So he does not go on the paddleboard with me because I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3". He goes in the kayak with my wife. And for some reason, the last time we went in the last summer, he bailed. He jumped out of the kayak. We don't know why. He was normal. He just sits there like a prince. And he's like, and he just dove over the side and did the non-swimmer thing because he cannot swim. Now they have life jackets on, so like we're very safe with the dogs. Both Beaker and Bunsen wore life jackets. So and then Beaker jumped to try and rescue Bunsen, we think, and they switched. So I had to like haul Bunsen up onto the paddleboard. This wet, sopping 120-pound dog, because he's wet now, and Beaker's like in the kayak. So a couple of those videos we took of the aftermath, and for some reason Bunsen blamed me for the fiasco and refused to look at me for about 2 hours after I rescued him and brought him to shore. And I'm like the guy that saved his life. I had nothing to do with him jumping out of the kayak, and he just like pretended I was dead to him, like would not acknowledge me.
He's like, I could have saved myself, Dad.
If you saw the video, that was doubtful.
Poor guy. So
I know, he's such a bad swimmer.
our George does that too, where the paws come up and out of the water, and it's like, just keep them in, buddy.
Yeah, he was doing this. His eyes were so big.
Oh gosh. So where can people find you at and see all these videos of your dogs and follow along?
We are on all the social medias, Bunsen and Beaker. So our biggest account is Twitter or X. Bunsen Burner BMD is the full name, Bunsen Burner BMD, and Burners with an E, so like the Bernese Mountain Dog. Instagram, it's bunsenburner.bmd, and Facebook and TikTok, it's Bunsen Burner. But if you search for Bunsen and Beaker on any social media site, you'll find us or Muppets. So
well, that's pretty easy.
It's a win-win. It's
a
win-win.
And then the podcast, are you guys on all the podcast platforms there too?
Yeah. We're everywhere. We've been really impressed with this hosting site called Good Pods. It's great for smaller podcasts like us.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out as soon as I hang up with you.
Yeah, Good Pods is awesome. We really like the interface. It's cool.
Good. I'm gonna check that out. And then before we go, what is one tip that you have for someone that would like to connect with nature?
Be present. Nature is always present. And I've said this to so many people. Like when you go out into nature, and nature can be anything. It can be a park in your city. It can be outside your back door in an alley. It can be a farmer's field. It can be wading through enormous snowdrifts in an Alberta winter. But nature isn't on its phone. Nature isn't worried about tomorrow. Nature is just present. And if you take a second to just be with nature, I mean, it's my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing to just be outside and feel the rain, feel the breeze, listen to the sounds instead of other human concerns. Just give yourself that time. And that's my advice.
That is perfect advice. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Jason.
No problem. This was a blast.
Yeah. And until next time, get outside and see what develops.
Thanks for joining Wild Development Studio. We hope this exploration into the world of wildlife arts and adventure has sparked a desire to get outside and connect with something wild. If you have an adventure that's awe-inspiring, don't hesitate to share. Click the link in the description to submit your story to have it featured on our show or be a guest. Until next time, keep connecting to the wild and see what develops. The views, opinions, and statements expressed by individuals during Wild Development Studio productions do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Wild Development Studio or its affiliates. Participation in any activities, expeditions, or adventures discussed or promoted during our content may involve inherent risks. It is strongly advised that individuals conduct thorough research, seek professional guidance, and take all necessary precautions before engaging in any such activities. Wild Development Studio, its representatives, or employees shall not be held responsible for any injury, loss, damage, accident, or unforeseen incident that may occur as a result of participating in activities inspired by or discussed in our content. By choosing to engage with our content or act upon any information provided, individuals do so at their own risk and discretion.
Hey,
For more great iRoar podcasts, visit iroarpod.com. That's IROARPOD.com.